Now this is new. Alright, it's slowing down now. Alright, and he's going back to his clockwise spin. Whew. I thought I broke it there for a minute. Alright, so another S2000 here. This is an 06. He came all the way from Miami. Now, if you want to get an idea of Miami to Pinellas Park where we are, it's about a 3 to 3.5 hour drive. Right now it is 8:05 a.m. Do the math, people. This guy got up and left his house before 5 o'clock to make it here. That's what we call passion. And when we talk about passion, that's what we have for this car. We're going to treat this car like our car. It is not just a sales pitch, I promise. Watch our videos, scroll through, try and catch us in a lie. You can't lie about something you love. We love doing this. We love our customers. We want to give them 100% attention and LHT TLC. So we're going to go ahead and pull this in. Here's the list right here, what we're going to do. We'll show you just a few steps along the way as we do this procedure. You ready? So real quick, it's more than likely a stock clutch, but the clutch is kind of stiff and heavy. We've shown you before, but it's usually the grease dried up on the slide and the release bearing, so the clutch feels really stiff. So that's one of those things that's going to make a massive difference after we change that. Alright, so under the hood, it's just completely normal. Everything's clean but dusty, which is usually a good sign. It means that nobody has been under here playing around and changing things. It's not immaculate, but obviously a little bit of cleaning, some elbow grease and some TLC will fix that. One thing here, I don't know what has gone on with that airbox. Somebody has rested something on there, been sitting tools on there and rolling them around. The airbox lid is pretty scratched up. That's an easy fix, especially his future mods will probably be eliminating that airbox. Alright, so removing the shifter. This is not in bad shape, but the grease gets kind of sticky here, and part of our rebuild is to replace these two plastic components right here. The little piece on the end that we refer to as the ball, and then this outer section here, we call it the cage. I don't know the exact terminology for it, but that's what we call it, and it seems to work for us. So we're going to go ahead and remove those, clean all the grease off, put the new parts on, all fresh grease. I'll show you this real quick. One thing to note here, what I would do is if you have a vise, put this thing in the vise. That way everything stays the same. There is a notch on this cage right here. It's like a bump sticking out. And if you mount this in the vise, everything stays the same. That notch has to go a certain way in relation to the shifter, but not to overcomplicate it. Put this in the vise. Make sure the bump is away from you, so when you're working on it, it's this way. You're not going to mess this up. So part number for the ball and the cage as follows. This is the cage right here. This is the ball. Alright, so taking the old parts off right here. I've had so many messages of people doing this and saying, how do you get it off, and trying everything. To be honest, I'm not going to show this because I'm going to get my hands super greasy here. I don't like wearing those gloves that you wear when you're doing, you know, magazine shoots and showing you how to install a brand new part in a brand new car, and you wear the black gloves to look like you really know what you're doing. I get right in there and get this stuff all over the place. It's good. It's like moisturizer. Anyway, you're going to just use brute force with your hands. If you got strong hands, if not, put some, you know, like heavy duty gloves on. This, you're basically going to put both fingers under here and pry this off. You're probably going to cut your thumb or something, but this is, I don't know. So this is going to pop off and this is going to pop off. It sits around that ball, but yeah, your hands are going to get yucky. So let me take that off. I'll show you what it looks like. So this pops up and comes off like this. You're going to discard this part, but this you're going to spend some time cleaning it and get all the grease off here, make it look nice and pretty. So now you got it all cleaned up and all the grease off. This is the grease you're going to use. This is our favorite grease, they call it. So once it's all clean, obviously grease it. This sucker will slide on super easy, the next one. Before we install it, we're going to grease all the way around the outside here. But the little ball here, this is a tip, and it's a tip that came from one of our followers that lived in a cold climate. Well, here in Florida, it's never that cold, so if this is sitting out, ambient temperature is 85 degrees, this is going to be pliable and it will pop on there. But what he told us, he broke two of these, popping it on here because it didn't really want to stretch. Now, I'm guessing he was in Canada somewhere, so this thing might have been, you know, minus 68 degrees kilometers, or whatever their measurement is there. So what I'm going to do is show you how to warm this up in a super easy way. Alright, a little old school for you. Homecoming 2010. Take your coffee cup, put some regular water in it, drop this guy in first. The reason we're going to drop it in first is as we warm the water up, we want to warm it up gradual. We don't want to boil water and then drop it in, because then you could damage that part. Even more old school, my microwave from my apartment days. Depending on the power of your microwave, this one is a very tiny microwave. We'll do this one for a minute. What you want to do is warm the water up. You don't want it boiling, you want to warm it up so it's too hot for you to stick your finger in, which, I don't know, 135 degrees Fahrenheit. And then that will be warm enough to push over the end of that shifter. Alright, let's see what we have now. See if we have it warm enough to make a nice cup of tea. Yeah, it's pretty hot. So now this is nice and hot. Put a little bit of grease around the ball right here, and this should just pop right on there. There we go. You see how much of a click that went with. Imagine this being cold. I can see where it would crack. I've never had one crack, but I've heard from him and a couple of people since, so always check it, make sure you don't have any fractures on there. But now it's got nice fresh grease. Go ahead and put a little bit more on there for good measure. Just grease everything up. So there's quite a bit of corrosion under this car, and it usually makes bolts tricky coming out. Well, one thing that we're doing is we have to remove a couple of these subframe bolts. We're taking each one out, putting a little bit of anti-seize on there and running them back in. Alright, that's what the transmission bell housing looks like. Again, this guy is pretty dry. It's bone dry. There's like dust in there. And the clutch, same thing. You see the release bearing, you see how dusty it is. That just gets everywhere. It looks like the factory clutch. We'll take it off, see what it looks like. So we are doing an FX300 and a ultra balanced lightweight flywheel. Flywheel is about 2 pounds less than the AP1, so it's still super streetable, but it's balanced to the next level. Let's take this one off and then we'll show you what we're putting back on. So this is the slide that's removed from the transmission. Super easy. Comes out with 3 little bolts and you can replace it. This is the new one. Now, these were shown in the past. This one isn't as bad, but they tend to get a ridge in here. This is where the bearing slides on this. When you press the clutch and release it, the bearing is sliding on this, which is why often it feels stiff. You see, it's got like the clutch dust. It just turns to a yuck. Well, when you have a bump in here, the bearing slides on this and it tends to find a bump, and it goes over the bump and you feel a click in the pedal, or like a hard spot and a soft spot and a hard spot again. Well, it's often this slide. So when we do a clutch, whether it needs it or not, we're replacing this. It's not a very expensive part. Most of your labor is taking the whole thing apart, so we're replacing every little item that could be bad, might be bad, could go bad in the future. That way it's just one less thing to do. It's peace of mind. Typically clutch you're only going to do every 70 to 100,000 miles on a normal vehicle, so why not do every part of it while you're in there and save yourself some trouble, and of course everything adds up to giving you that really nice feeling OEM clutch again. Same reason why we replaced this. This is the rubber dust boot cover. This covers up the slave cylinder. This is something that gets dry rotted. You see this one, you see how it's split. It's no longer rubber, it's almost like a plastic. They just fall apart, and often you see that they don't go back in. They're deformed here, they don't like to be reused, they don't fit very well, and they fall apart. So part of our clutch install too is a new rubber boot, nice and squishy, and it does what it's supposed to do. It seals. If you check out our online store, should be up soon, we're going to offer the clutch kit, and we're going to include everything that you need. The things that you see in this video, they're all going to be included. The slide, the dust boot, the Nietzsche bearing on anything that we do, and of course, you know, clutch main seal and engine main seal all together in one box. So there's the engine main seal and trans main seal that we include with our kit. Go ahead and torque down the flywheel. As you see, the flywheel has been cut and surfaced, help it break in. We always like to go over our checklist. That way we can see exactly what is still to do. It's like a nice visual aid less chance of mixing something up. So also doing the Clutchmaster's braided clutch line. I'm going to go ahead and drain the fluid. One thing we noticed, fluid is really dark in this one. It almost looks like motor oil. It's pretty dark. So check off our list. Again, just as a visual aid, just helps you remember every step. Again, engine oil change needs to be done. Pretty much finishing up with our list right here, and then it is close to startup and test drive. All right, all back together. Fluid is done, clutch fluid is done, of course everything on the list. We're gonna torque the wheels and just run the clutch. You've seen us do it on past videos. We'll basically run it through the gears on the lift. It's like the super duper baby way of braking in the clutch. You're basically using the clutch without putting any weight on it except just the weight of the wheels, which is, again, very, very OCD, but it's a really good way to do that initial braking before you even move it. And then, of course, we'll run it back and forth in the parking lot and double check the adjustment is correct. But this one is good. We've still got a few things we've got to kind of mention to him. You see this has completely split on the intake tube. The clamp is gone, but this is completely split. A few little clips here and there missing, but it's all things that can be put together later on. Much softer now, huh?
Very soft.
How's the shifter? Does it feel like it tightens it up any?
It's solid.
Yeah, that makes such the difference. So there you go, guys. Rebuild the shifter. It makes a huge difference. Of course, new clutch. A few of the little TLC things that we do. We don't show you every little thing because, of course, it's TLC. It's a little bit of LHT secret, but this car is done. It's going to go back to Miami. Of course, you got to brake in a clutch, even though we do like a preliminary clutch braking on the lift, and then George just took it in the parking lot just to up and down first and second gear. You really need a good 500 to 700 miles of stop and go driving for it to be fully broken in. So the longer you break it in, the better the clutch will be. You got to remember the parts have to bed in together so they fit perfectly, and of course the friction on the clutch does what it's supposed to do. So this one is done. There's his old parts right there. We can show those to the customer, and that's it. Car is done, ready to go home. All right, this week is a whole bunch of little stuff. We had a cancellation this week. A customer that was coming from out of state, like way out of state, and his truck got canceled. So this week we've been fitting in all the little stuff that we have piling up, and it's all important stuff, but it's the things that we usually fit in between or at the end of a job if it gets finished early. So this week is going to be like a compilation of all kinds of little stuff. So let me show you the first car. All right, first car, Mercedes. This is pretty simple, but he has a muffler that got bent. He backed up, or somebody hit him, bent his muffler. He has had his eye on a muffler with twin tips, so now is the time that we can make that happen. So let's get this one in. Second car is that yellow S2000. I just opened the hood. It's getting new retainers and keepers, and of course a valve adjustment. So this has basically a single outlet that splits into two. He's not really fond of that, but as you see, it got pushed up in the bumper, and I think he said somebody hit him, which sucks, but from this angle it doesn't actually look too bad. So right now all we're going to do is replace that muffler and put on twin tip muffler, something stainless, something that looks a little bit more fancy. He's into this. This is his family car, but of course it's a enthusiast car. He enjoys it. He loves to modify it and tweak it and get it personalized to his taste. Of course it's a manual, so it's a fun car to drive. So that's part of the game. It's a car guy, it's a car thing. If you enjoy your car, modify it, and you're an enthusiast and enjoy to manipulate it. All right, so this is what it looks like underneath. As you see, the muffler as being pushed a lot. You can also see by the hangers here, everything is stretched, everything is getting pushed forward. And this one, these generic mufflers that we see on the Mercedes and BMWs, well, we're going to put a MagnaFlow on here. This is the stainless one with the two tips, and this measurement here is close to this measurement here, so hopefully it's going to get the two tip look he is going for. It's interesting, it's like a two tip that goes into a single. Yeah. This would have been what he wanted if we'd have cut this here and put two tips. Well, it's bent all over the place too. Hangers are bent, and he wants a little bit of noise anyway, so we'll take this big girl off and put our MagnaFlow on there. Alright, so that's what our MagnaFlow looks like. Goes in single, comes out to a dual, so there's a dual core all the way through here. So hopefully this will give us a little bit of noise that he is looking for. Another small job is this swing arm. He wants it repaired, like this side. You see what happened over here? Something has come loose and just wore through this and just took this whole end piece off. Is it focusing there? This piece is completely gone, so we're going to clean this first before we can weld on it, and what we're probably going to do is cut some of that open to access it, but we've got to get this thing really clean first before we weld on it. So go ahead and pressure wash this with some clean detergent and we'll see what it looks like. So we are on, and this fits pretty good. Obviously this is like a rounded arch, but we have even space in on both sides. We'll put it down. We didn't want this to stick out too far. The old one did stick out quite a ways, I remember him saying. And you don't want it disappearing under here too, because you won't see it, and he wants to be able to show this thing off. Obviously why we left it polished stainless hangers, braced both sides, just to make sure it doesn't, you know, tear the case over time. If it hits a big bump or even something hits this, you don't want this tearing through the case, even though the MagnaFlows do have a pretty thick outer skin. So let's put the wheel back on. Alright, so that's got a pretty good look when you stand straight on it. It kind of disappears, but it's got enough to stand out, and you see a little bit of the MagnaFlow logo right there, so I think he is going to be happy with that. So let's get a quick sound clip, start it up cold, see what it sounds like. Rev it. Oh, that's got a good sound. It's a nice deep tone. Alright, I think he'll be happy with that. It's pretty quiet up here. Go ahead and rev it again. That sounds actually pretty good. Yeah. That's better than I thought it would be. I was hoping it wouldn't be loud, but I wanted a little bit of a deep tone. That's pretty cool. Go ahead and rev it again, George. Go ahead. Alright, second car. It's been sitting outside for 3.5 hours now with the hood open, so it's cooled off a little bit, but we still want to get it to as close to ambient as possible, so we'll pop the hood, take it apart, start taking the retainers and keepers off, and by the time we put it back together, it should be cool enough to adjust. Alright, so we've done a handful of videos on this, so I'm not going to show you the same thing over and over again because I don't want them to get too repetitive. Not that we work on many S2000s, but this is the AP1 retainers, is known for being weak, and of course to change the retainers you got to change the keepers, which are a matching piece. Typically we go for 05, just because it's definitely an AP2 and someone's not going to mix up the bags. But 04 through 09 are the better retainers. We've ran them 10,000 RPMs, 500-600 horsepower, year after year after year. It's my favorite retainer and keeper. It's peace of mind. These, I would say, the last 50 sets we have done, I've had 2 where I've noticed the retainer actually bad. You look at the retainer like this, and it kind of bends like this because it bends around the valve stem, and of course it can break. When it breaks, it drops the valve in the motor, and it's usually catastrophic damage, which can be prevented by changing the retainers and keepers early. Alright, so if you watch one of our past videos, you'll see our LHT boost spinners. These things are unbelievable. This is a creation by our good friend Jeff. Now these are version, I would say these are version 3, maybe 4, because they're running obviously a regular bearing in here and the LHT base, and this is a turbine wheel exact recreation of this, 3D printed. This is detailed. I mean, this is unbelievable. Well, he's built a few of these and they keep getting better and better. He built one with a ceramic bearing. Well, he just came out with version 5.0. I'm gonna call it 5.0. This is the ultimate bearing right here. Look at this. You know what kind of bearing we're running? It's magic technology. This is obviously floating on here with pure magic, nothing else. Nothing can describe how this is actually floating on here apart from magic. There's no physics involved. There's no electricity, no magnets, no electrical cord. You can't see any electrical cord here at all. You see, there's no electrical cord. This is pure magic. Check this out. This is terrific. If you guys want to buy one of these, PM me. But look at that. This has been running for 3 days so far. I might be exaggerating. Might be more like 2 minutes, but it's still really impressive. All right, AP1 retainers and keepers. These, you've almost got to see them for yourself to see what I'm talking about. They are so thin on this edge. I mean, you could use these instead of a razor blade to cut packages open. This edge is sharp, and that's what starts bending. So it's back together. George did a quick cleanup on it while it was under there. Gonna let it run, just double check it. It's nice and smooth. We can go ahead and deliver this. So this one is done. It's got a quick cleanup. George went ahead and cleaned it, did our little valve cover cleanup, and the stainless Allen bolts, by the way, which eventually when we get a website, they're gonna be on our website, believe it or not. So this one is done. Let me show you what we are bringing in now. It's just kind of a quick slide it in between other jobs, but let me show you this car. So check this out real quick. This is owned by a customer. He flew in from Ohio, went to buy this car, which I'm not going to say where he bought it from, but it was right up the road, about 30 miles from here. And he said, you know what, I want to run by LHT. I watched their video, so that was a great honor that he watched our videos and wanted to come and see us. But this car is a cherry. I mean, he said it himself. He goes, check this car out, look around it, tell me what you think. It's white with tan, which is a really nice combination. I used to call this a unicorn. In fact, if Dave Wagner's watching, I called his car a unicorn. And then I think I've seen 3 or 4 since. So his is still the unicorn, but this is still a nice combination. Let me tell you what sucks about the car. It's got a super loud N1 exhaust, little bullet mufflers. This is gonna drone all the way back to Ohio. Luckily, he got the stock exhaust from the customer, and he came by and he goes, what are the chances that you guys can make that happen? Well, if you know us and you know what we're about, I said if we can make it happen, we will. And we are. So this one is gonna come in. I'm gonna take that exhaust off, give it back to him, put his stock exhaust on, and send him on his way, and then get back to our usual scheduled program. All right, just in case you are keeping track, this is the yellow car. Let me show you the hood real quick. George is pushing back the silver car. That car is getting a valve adjustment and a whole bunch of maintenance items. And then the white car I just showed you, the super low mileage car, we're gonna squeeze that in right now, which is there to do the exhaust, which is down there. I'm backing up. I want to make sure that I don't drive over that exhaust. That would be terrible. So let me back this one up. We are playing shuffle cars. That's George, just in case you didn't know. That's the black Mercedes, and this is the yellow car, and that's the white car, and that's the silver car. Do you want to do the honors, George? Yeah. You're gonna squeeze that one in here.
Wash mine, but how did I get already?
Yeah, no. If you watch George on Instagram, he just pulled his car apart and did the whole interior, just cleaned it.
Pooped on twice in this set here.
And it really pissed off one of his local birds, and that guy is looking out for George. That guy's a good shot. He was hoping that window was open so he could get in and dive bomb and pull out real quick.
You know, the other day when I was cleaning the car, I leaned in the car to get something and a bird pooped on my hand when it was on the sill with the door open.
You've really upset some birds. They're like, there's that guy, get him.
Also, if you follow my Instagram, I've already got the comment of, I wouldn't want to park my car under that tree.
Yeah, no kidding. Just don't park next to George because he might miss and hit your car. So the mileage is 40,187. That is terrific. All right. That sounds great. What is that guy thinking? Yeah, that's what he's thinking. He's not 19. That's what it is. All right, let's get this one up in the air. We'll give it a quick look over and do the exhaust. This is a gritty. It's the N1, which I'm making fun of it just because I'm no longer 19. It's just super loud unless you put the baffles in here, which you can buy a baffle and it fits in here and it chokes it down so it doesn't make any horsepower at all, but it does make it quieter. And these are just notorious for being loud. So let's see, just so if the owner is watching, let me give a quick once over your car just so you can kind of see what's going on. So you saw a second ago it had a high flow cat coming up. That's what came on it. I don't know the brand, they all kind of look the same, to be honest. Looks like a 70mm. It's also going to add to the sound, it's going to make it louder. Pretty good sized resonator on this, but those little mufflers back here, they just don't do a good job suppressing sound. You'll see when we build an exhaust, we're trying to build the biggest size we can fit in there to try and suppress the sound. This is actually a pretty good size right here. Good thing about this, it can condense and fit in the trunk. If we break this loose here, this section is about 3 feet long, and then it leaves just from that flange to here. So that's another small section. So he wants to take it home with him, put it in his trunk. Let's go ahead, take it down. Okay, so quick tip on putting on the factory exhaust, because this is a pain, especially without a lift. I wouldn't encourage you doing this on jack stands because it really is difficult. But you know what my tip is to put this exhaust on, is to drop it off at a shop. Exhaust is on, so all kidding aside, there is no real tips to putting it on. It is a pain, and especially on the ground. It's just a heavy piece. There is 4 hangers, 2 on each muffler, and then of course 1 right here. There it is, and then 3 bolts to the back of the cat. But it's just heavy and cumbersome and a pain in the rear doing this on your own. So it looks so much better with the oval tip, fits the opening, and it's very well proportioned to the bumper. It's our favorite exhaust. Typically when we build an exhaust, we try and replicate that because it looks so good. So let's go ahead and get a sound clip on this one. All right, ready? Ah, listen to that. That's beautiful. Big difference. Go ahead and burp the gas. Oh, that's it. He's going to be in love with this. That drive back to Ohio is going to be a whole lot better than with the Greddy ear bleeder. So 40,187. Hope the customer enjoys this car. And again, thank you for watching. Thank you for visiting LHT and saying hi, and bring us this car by to show us. All right, silver car on the lift. Let's go over the list real quick. Let's show you what we are doing to this. Ignore this. This is to replace our seals and gaskets that we need. So the silver car, valve adjust, oil change, trans diff, CMC. Anybody want to yell out what that is? I'll read the comments and we'll go ahead and put that in. Real quick, this is our compressor oil. George has stayed really religious to this. Not this. This is diff oil for a S2000, but this is to replace the fluid on the compressor. George has stayed on top of this, which is great because it hasn't failed since he's been changing the oil. Actually, I tell a lie, it's 5 days over. You see that? Today is the 5th of May, which I don't know what that means. Anybody know what 5th of May means? I feel like I'm trolling here. This compressor, I think we bought it about 5 years ago after my other one threw a rod, which I'm a mechanic, right? I understand how motors work. I've built hundreds of motors. I didn't think of changing the fluid in this. I was like, hey, it's just a compressor. Well, there is oil in here, just like a motor. There is 2 pistons in here and a crank. It's just exactly like a motor. Well, it broke the rod, and the rod threw out this and blew up. Side note, we bought this. This was obviously a Craftsman. We bought this, and it had a leak around here. It would leak on the head gasket. So pulled this apart, surfaced it, put a new gasket in, rebuilt it, put it back together. That was about 2 months after owning it. It's been perfect ever since. Look at that, still holding pressure, still holding.
I could totally see where it would, but grabs you in the middle.
Another one of those classic clutch masters. A lot of people have seen in our videos, and now it's like the first thing they look at. They go look at an S2000. First thing they do is pop the hood and go, yep, it's pretty dark. Well, this needs one, of course. The brakes are not looking too good. I'm going to recommend he does that. Might not be on this visit, but it's something that he should do. But of course, when it gets that bad, usually the master cylinder is leaking, which it is. Comtech strut tower bar, Comtech spark plug cover. We don't know the history of this car, but it may have had a supercharger on it. It may not. We don't know. But this is old school parts right here. Comtech's no longer around. I do remember when they were around though. Alright, so in case you follow our channel, you might have seen our calendar here. This is a calendar my dad bought, as he brings us one every year. It's he tends to buy it with cars, but he also tries to buy the cheapest calendar he can find. And he bought this from the pound shop, so this was a pound. So say bye-bye to a 1959 Austin Healey 3000, and hello to a 1967 Alfa Romeo Spider Duetto 2. Alright, so if you remember the swing arm from earlier, I went ahead and cleaned all this and built it up with weld. Basically cut all that section out that was bad and filled it completely. So now I'm going to sand it and put some shape back in it, try and replicate that side, and drill a hole. I put that bolt in just so it doesn't damage the threads on the backside. So let's go ahead and do some measuring, sand it, drill it. Hopefully we can make it look like that. Alright, so finished it off, drilled the hole, sanded it, made it look a little cleaner. So now we can call the customer and he can pick that up. Alright, so this one is done. It's ready to go home. There is one thing I want to show you before we end this video. So you remember the spinner from earlier? Yes, you do, because it was probably minutes ago, but it was hours ago and days ago from this video. But I actually had this spinning the opposite way by blowing on it. Basically, I kind of did one of these numbers and was blowing on it. Well, there is some kind of natural electronic wave or something, but that is the speed that it goes, and it goes clockwise. So that's kind of interesting. He never said, hey, I put some kind of energizer in it to spin, but it does spin. It's been spinning all day. So the question is, what happens when you pull the plug? You ready? Yes.